Hi, my name is Jeff H. Sipe, and I have over 10 years of recruiting experience, including 5 years at Google. In this video, we are going to cover the commonly asked question, how would others describe you? And the tips and tricks in this video are going to be pretty simplistic, but I just want to introduce a couple of concepts that challenge what other videos, what other articles are saying. And please stay tuned till the end when I'll provide a sample example for you. If you like my content, please like. If you have any comments, please comment below. And if you like my overall content, please subscribe. Item 1, self-assessment. So essentially this is your baseline. And all I want you to work on is getting these concepts down in a Google Doc, down on paper, and just start to think about what are my skills, what are my strengths. And if you are struggling at all to find the right words, I've actually added in the YouTube description below some words that you might want to use to describe yourself. It's an article, so go ahead and take a look. But this should be relatively quick. You're spending maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes just kind of thinking through it. And then the second part of the self-assessment is you're actually going to look at documentation. So that could be a written recommendation, which is honestly getting very uncommon these days. It could be a LinkedIn recommendation, which is also getting less common. Or it could be just feedback that you got in a yearly review, feedback that you got via email, any documentation you can find where somebody was highlighting your key skills and strengths. Again, this is going to be a little bit of an exercise to go through this and do this, but it can be extremely valuable. Item 2, ask. I just want you to go through this exercise of asking your current lead or boss, your current peers, cross-functional stakeholders, external stakeholders, anybody who will answer this question for you, what do you do well? And maybe what are some areas you can improve on, and say, this is a self-assessment for me to learn and get better. I want to grow the skills that I'm already currently good at, and I want to focus on improving skills or areas where I need to up my game. And this is a very, very simplistic exercise, but for the people who help you out, you're going to find out a lot of information, and you're asking for the positive and negative because honestly, if you just ask for one, I think it would be a little stranger. You want to really talk about and look at what you can improve on. And this exercise, just in general, will be really positive and beneficial for you. Item 3, a big one, the job description. So you're taking this kind of self-assessment and what other people have told you, and now you're flipping your attention to the job description. You really need to comb through the job description and figure out, okay, what is this position asking for? What are the needs and what are the core skills that are going to help me be successful? And I'll post that video up top just to help you go through that exercise of going through the job description. This is absolutely a critical step because all of these items don't really matter if you're not tying it back to the role. Item 4, company research. So as you're looking at your own skills and strengths, you're looking at the job description to align those skills and strengths. Then this kind of third step is you're really looking to do some company research. And that could be their mission statement, that could be social media, that could be what you're reading in the news, what you see in videos, what you see in articles. But if you can tie that together, like a company, Amazon, for instance, is super customer focused, so you're going to probably want to have customer focused as one of your key strengths or skills, right? So really understanding not only the job description, but the overall organization going to be critical to your success. Okay, item 5, know your audience. So as you're crafting and catering this answer and really coming up and practicing and preparing this answer, I want you to be thinking about the nuances of your audience. And so would you give a slightly different answer to a hiring manager as opposed to a peer, as opposed to a cross-functional stakeholder? And the answer is you probably will. Now, I want you to keep the core basics. Always stick with, maybe if we're thinking in a rule of 3, stick with 2 of those items every single time. So let's take a teammate. For example, you're interviewing with a potential peer on your team. Well, you're definitely going to want to focus on the teamwork skill or strength that you have, and how you answer that and navigate that, that's really up to you. Item 6, and this is one that I couldn't find anywhere else, is who. And what I specifically mean by this is I want you to throw that question back at the interviewer and ask, you're asking me to define how others describe me? Should I be talking about how I think my boss might describe me, a peer, a cross-functional stakeholder? It might seem like a ridiculous question, but what you're trying to do is you're trying to narrow down and build that connectivity. And in reality, your interviewer, Sue, might absolutely have a preference, but she hasn't stated that preference. So your goal is just to find out, hey, is there a specific person that you want me to be talking about? Again, it's a very simplistic step. The vast majority of the time, Sue is going to say, no, you can just generically answer the question. Item 7, adding an example. This is one of the areas where I actually strongly disagree with all the articles and videos on this subject. You only provide an example after answering the question and asking Jane, hey Jane, is it okay if I provide an example? So for 2 reasons, I think that this is really important. First thing, they didn't ask you for an example. And secondly, in all these articles and videos, I saw a very, very high level example, and I don't want a high level example. I want to build connectivity with my audience, and therefore I need to get into the weeds a little bit, but I need permission to go forward with that example because this could be a softball warm-up question, and Jane just asked it right off the bat, but she really wants to get more in depth, and so you need to make sure that you're building that connectivity with your audience. So with an example, you always have to ask. Item 8, example answer. So you're going to start by restating the question. Jane, great question. What you're asking is, how would others describe me? And so I'm just kind of curious, do you want me to take this from a lead perspective or a teammate perspective or a cross-functional perspective? Let's assume Jane doesn't give you any feedback or any direction, so you're just going to go high level. Jane, one of the things I did in preparation for this interview and just as a good overall experiment, I asked some of the people at my current company to describe what I do well and how I might expand on those skills. And the people who are gracious enough and kind enough to go through this exercise with me highlighted a few things. And number 1 was that I had strong communication skills, specifically asking good questions, practicing really good active listening, and that I always tried my best to be supportive and empathetic. My coworkers also consistently noted that I have a bias for action, so that I really like to ship, and that it helps them actually be more focused and proactive, and in turn that makes me more focused and proactive. And lastly is that I'm pretty organized. I always follow through on my commitments and obligations, constantly keeping people informed throughout. Jane, I know this is super high level. Would you like me to provide an example? And then you are prepared to provide an example that is going to talk about all 3 of these skills, all these skills coupled together, and it's going to be a longer, more complex answer. This is not a super complex question, but it's one that you definitely have to prepare and practice for. And so if you outline and take these steps, you are going to get other skills. There are going to be other great things that happen by doing and going through this exercise. But going through this exercise will definitely help answer this specific question. I really hope this helps. Thanks.